A tradition of the Middle Ages furnishes a contribution to the proofs of the Arab origin of the foreigners, for a legend tells of a certain Shaddad, a mighty man, the son of Ad, who conquered Egypt and extended his victorious campaign as far as the Straits of Gibraltar. He and his descendants, the founders of the Amalekite dynasty, are said to have maintained themselves for more than 200 years in Lower Egypt, where they made the town of Avaris their royal residence. According to Julius Africanus, who epitomised the work of Manetho, the Hyksos kings are said to have been Phoenicians, who took possession of Memphis and made Avaris and the Sethroite Nome their chief fortress. This tradition is not without a certain appearance of truth. The ancient seats of the Shasu Arabs and of the Phoenicians extend westwards to the city of Zor Tanis. Consequently, the two races must have come into the closest contact. That amidst such a mixture of nations, the cultivated Ha would obtain the foremost place scarcely needs a proof, but whether they or the Shasu were the originators of the movement against the native kings is a question of which scientific research has hitherto been unable to answer. The inscriptions on the monuments designate that foreign people who once ruled in Egypt by the name of Men or Menti. On the walls of the temple of Edfu is stated that the inhabitants of the land of Ashur, Asher, are called Menti. So that could be the grandson or descendant of Jacob, right? In the Hebrew, could be that guy. Not Ashur, the god of the Mesopotamians, Assyrians, right? Ashur, not that one. Okay. Yeah, I think it's either a grandson of Jacob or one of his sons. By the help of the Demotic translation of the trilingual, and it's got a footnote indicated there, the inscription is in hieroglyphics, Demotic and Greek, because the Egyptians at some point changed their language into a Demotic script. Okay, the stone is at Giza. Trilingual inscription on the great stone of Tanis, known as the Decree of Canopus, Ptolemaic times. We can establish that such was the common name of Syria in the popular language of the Egyptians, while the older name of the same country cited in the hieroglyphic part of the stone was Rutinu, with the addition of the East. In different languages, therefore, and in different periods of history, the following names are synonymous: Syria, Rutinu of the East, Ashur and Menti. It is possible that in the late Egyptian Ashur, Asher, the Semitic Ashur, or Assyria, so that was the other name for it. Assyria was Ashur, may survive. The old national name Rutinu plays an important part in the history of the 18th dynasty. It would appear from the catalogue of the towns of Western Asia conquered by Tahutmes III, whose inhabitants submitted to the Egyptian rule after the Battle of Megiddo, that this name must have coincided almost exactly with the country included later within the boundaries of the 12 tribes of Israel. This information is a great help to the right understanding of the movement of the tribes in the Eastern Delta. It is certain that immediately after the expulsion of the Menti, the Egyptian kings of the 18th dynasty directed their campaigns against the countries inhabited by the Rutinu. There must have lain, therefore, at the bottom of these constantly repeated invasions, the fixed motive of revenge and retribution for losses and injuries received. No doubt the eruption of the foreigners into Egypt proceeded from the Syrians, who in their progress through the arid desert found in the Shasu Arabs welcome allies who knew the country, and in the Semitic inhabitants settled in 2 eastern marches of Egypt. They welcomed brothers of the same race, with whose help they succeeded in giving a severe blow to the Egyptian kingdom and in robbing it for centuries of all independent energy. So that's why they're called pillagers, robbers, thieves. Okay? Not so much shepherd kings, because that's what they were known for: pillaging, robbing, and being thieves. Historical research concerning the history of the Hyksos may be summed up as follows. 1. A certain number of non-Egyptian kings of foreign origin belonging to the nation of the Menti ruled for a long time in the eastern portion of the delta. 2. These chose as their capitals the cities of Zoan and Avaris, and provided them with strong fortifications. So it could be Zoan, could be Sion, right? Not really sure. We don't know what that is in that language. But yeah, Avaris apparently was known as Sion. Sion, S-I-O-N. And provided them with strong fortifications, as far as we know. It did. 3. They adopted not only the manners and customs of the Egyptians, but also the official language and writing, and the order of their court was arranged on Egyptian models. 4. They were patrons of art, and Egyptian artists erected, after the ancient models, monuments in honour of these usurpers, in whose statues they were obliged to reproduce the Hyksos physiognomy, the peculiar arrangement of the beard and headdress, as well as other variations of their costume. 5. They honoured Sutik, the son of Nut, as the supreme god of their newly acquired country, with the surname Nub, the Golden. He was the origin of all that is evil and perverse in the visible and invisible world, the opponent of good and the enemy of light. In the cities of Zoan and Avaris, splendid temples were constructed in honour of this god, and other monuments raised, especially sphinxes carved out of stone from Syene. 6. In all probability, one of them was the founder of a new era, which most likely began with the first year of his reign. Down to the time of the second Ramses, 400 years had lapsed of this reckoning, which was acknowledged even by the Egyptians. 7. The Egyptians were indebted to their contact with them for much useful knowledge. In particular, their artistic views were expanded and new forms and shapes, notably that of the winged sphinx, were introduced, the Semitic origin of which is obviously at a glance. So would that be that sun disk thing? In relation to that, the winged sphinx? Not really sure. The number of monuments which contain memorials of the time of the Hyksos is very limited, and names of these kings on their own memorial stones, as well as those of earlier Egyptian kings of the times before them, have in many cases been carefully chiselled out, so that in deciphering the faint traces which remain, we have to contend with the great difficulties. This gap in the sequence of the monuments may be explained by the fact that when the native rulers were re-established, they carefully obliterated every record of the hated usurpers. The names of the Hyksos kings, which cover the more than life-size statue at Tel Mukdam, the border of the colossal sphinx in the Louvre, the Baghdad lion, and the sacrificial stone at Gizeh, are erased with such care as to be almost illegible. You can't read them at all. And science owes merely to an accident the preservation and deciphering with certainty of the names of 2 of them. These are Akhenin Ra, with the family name of Pepe, and Nub, with the official name of Set, the powerful. The name of the first, which would have been pronounced in the Memphite dialect Hefi, differs little from that of the king Pharaohs, who, according to Manetho, was the 4th of the above-named Hyksos kings. The names which designate the other are strikingly similar in sound to those which the god Setnub, the powerful, usually bears on the Egyptian monuments. In the Salia Papyrus in the British Museum, we find the name of the foreign king Pepe in connection with an Egyptian under-king Sekhenen Ra. Page 1. It came to pass that the land of Kemet belonged to the enemies, and nobody was lord in the day when that happened. At that time there was indeed a king Sekhenen Ra, but he was only a heart of the city of the south. But the enemies sat in the town of the Amu, and 2. Pepe was king in the city of Avaris, and the whole world brought him its productions. Also the north country did likewise, with all the good things of Tamera. And the king Pepe 3 chose the god Set for his divine lord, and he did not serve any of the gods which were worshipped in the whole land. He built him a temple of glorious work to last for ages. And the king Pepe appointed feasts and days to offer the sacrifices at every season to the god Sute. Sequenin-Ra had, according to all appearances, incurred the special displeasure of the tyrant of Pharaohs, who designed to hurl him from his throne and sought for a pretext to carry out his intention. Before this, there had evidently been an interchange of letters between them, in which the latter, among other things, required of the former to give up his own gods and to worship Su-Te alone. Sequenin-Ra had declared himself prepared for all, but had added a proviso to his letter, in which he expressly declared that he was not able to pledge his assent to serve any other of the gods that were worshipped in the whole country but Amen-Ra, the king of the gods alone. This new message to the Hak of the southern city had been drawn up by council and approved of the king Apipi. The Papyrus relates this in these words. Many days later, after those events, King Apipi sent to the governor of the city in the south country this message, which the scribes had drawn up for him, and the messenger of King Apipi betook himself to the governor of the city of the south. And the messenger was brought before the governor of the city in the south country. He spake thus when he spoke to the messenger of King Apipi: Who hath sent thee hither to the city of the south? How art thou come in order to spy out? The messenger of Apipi thus addressed first answered the governor in these simple words: It is King Apipi who sends to thee. And thereupon he delivered his message, the purport of which was very disquieting and related to the stopping of a canal. And it continues. Although the narrative is frequently interrupted by holes owing to the splitters of the papyrus, sometimes in the most important passages that remains quite sufficient to make clear the persons, the scenes, and the subject of the historical drama. Apipi is the chief hero. His residence is at Avaris. He worships his own divinity, Su-Te, the Egyptian form of the Semitic Baal Zapuna, the Baal Zephon of Holy Scripture. He builds a splendid temple to his god, and he appoints festivals and offerings to him. At Nor, the city of the south, that is at Thebes, there resides a scion of the oppressed pharaohs or kings, Sequenin-Ra, who is invited with the title of a Hak or petty king. Apipi is the all-powerful lord. Among his courtiers are some who bear the title of Rekihet, that is temple scribes. These give the king bad counsel, for they induce him to send a messenger to the petty king in No with severe demands. Sequenin-Ra receives him with the same question which Joseph, his contemporary, put to his own brethren when they went down to Egypt to buy corn, saying to them, where'd you come from, basically? You are spies, and you are come here to see where the land lies open. Yeah? Is there a way you can sneak in something? Nudada Castra. After the Hak heard the demands of Apipi from the mouth of his messenger, he was deeply moved. The great lords and chief men of his courts were summoned to a council, and the leaders also of the army, but no one dared to make a proposal for fear of the unfortunate consequences, and so forth. What's this? Genealogy of the family of the captain of the sailors, Mess, drawn up on the spot from the inscription in the tombs at Kikab in Upper Egypt. Okay, and there's more in relation to letters sent back and forth by the looks of it. Here it's got, since on the basis of the most recent and best investigations in that time frame, of the author writing this book, etc., they reckon the year 1350 BC as a mean computation for the reign of the above named Ramses, the reign of the Hyksos king Nub, and probably its beginning falls in the year 1750 BC, that is 400 years before Ramses II. Although we are completely in the dark as to the place where King Nub occupied in the succession of the kindred princes of his house, yet the succession of the kindred princes. We just read it. Yet the number mentioned is important as an approximate epoch for the stay of the foreign kings in Egypt. According to the statement in the Bible, the Hebrews from the immigration of Jacob into Egypt until the Exodus remained 430 years in that land. Since the Exodus from Egypt took place in the time of Mena II, the son of Ramses II, the Pharaoh of the oppression, the year BC 1300 may be an approximate date. So it wasn't Ramses, it was a Pharaoh, it was his son, Mena II, according to those monuments, those records, monumental records, etc. Or those monuments, those stellates, or whatever. If we add to this 430 years as expressing the total duration of the sojourn of the Hebrews in Egypt, we arrive at the year 1730 BC as the approximate date for the immigration of Jacob into Egypt and for the time of the official career of Joseph at the court of Pharaoh, or the king. In other words, the time of Joseph, 730 BC, must have fallen in the period of the Hyksos domination, about the reign of the above-mentioned foreign prince Nub, 1750. So the time of Joseph at the court of Pharaoh, 1730 BC, must have fallen in the period of the Hyksos domination. So it looks like him being a Israelite. There were other people in that land that came into that land, these Hyksos, which were a mixed race of everybody else, sort of thing. Semite, right? That's what it seems to be hinting here. The singular coincidence of numbers appears to have a higher value than the dates given in the chronological tables of Manetho and the fathers of the church, and shows the probability of a fixed time for an important section of universal history on the basis of two chronological data which correspond in a way almost marvellous. In fact, the supposition that it was under the Hyksos that Joseph was sold into Egypt. Okay, so these Hyksos were already there, and then he's been sold to them. Because at that time it was ruled by them. Is that what they're trying to get at? And that's probably why they don't know the name of that king, or that Pharaoh, after Joseph died. Everybody had died, these Israelites, etc. Maybe, we're not too sure on that one. We're still thinking about that one. Okay, we're going to go with that again. If we add to this 430 years as expressing the total duration of the sojourn of the Hebrews in Egypt, we arrive at the year 1730 BC as the approximate date for the immigration of Jacob into Egypt. I don't think he's... Okay, yeah, that's Joseph, yeah. I was thinking about Jacob. Jacob was an old man, right? Going blind, all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if he lasted that long. While there. Okay, so the official career of Joseph at the court of Pharaoh, or the king. In other words, the time of Joseph, 1730, must have fallen in the period of the Hyksos domination, about the reign of the above-mentioned foreign prince Nub, 1750 BC. Okay, and it was under the Hyksos that Joseph was sold into Egypt. As a resulting from the relations thus explained, obtained stronger probability from the writings of Georgius Syncellus, who states that Joseph ruled the land in the reign of Apophis, whose age preceded the commencement of the 18th dynasty by only a few years. On the basis of an old inscription at El-Kab, the author of which must have been a contemporary of Joseph, it is possible to establish the proof that Joseph and Hyksos are inseparable from one another. Hang on, if he was a Hebrew, sold to them, don't know about that one. It's kind of confusing there. if he was in the Bible, he was a Hebrew or Israelite, and he was sold to the Hyksos, who were dominating Egypt at the time, then wouldn't he be they'd both be like different, you know, two separate people. You must remember that in the days of the patriarch, a 7-year famine occurred in consequence of a deficiency in the inundation. Although there is no royal cartouche in the tomb to which the inscription refers, there is internal evidence to show that Baba, its owner, must have lived immediately previous to the 18th dynasty. Baba, the risen again, speaks thus: I love my father, etc., etc. I was watchful at the time of sowing, and when a famine arose, lasting many years, I distributed corn to the city each year of famine. Not the smallest doubt can be raised as to whether the last words of the inscription relate to an historical fact or not. Okay, so now, since famines succeeded one another are of the very greatest rarity in Egypt, and Baba lived and worked under the native king Sekinandra III in the ancient city of El-Kab, about the same time during which Joseph exercised his office under one of the Hyksos kings, there remains for a satisfactory conclusion but one fair inference, that the many years of famine in the days of Baba must correspond to the 7 years of famine under Joseph's Pharaoh king, who was one of the shepherd kings. So it wasn't an Egyptian, because they were dominating it, like we thought. Okay? Right? So then Joseph eventually dies, right? And his body's carried away back to his home or something like that. Upon as requested or whatever. So these other ones that took over, according to the Bible, were these Egyptians who then saw that there was a great number of they didn't know Joseph, right? They saw that there was a great number of these Israelites, you know, they were breeding hardcore, and soon Egypt would be overpopulated. This is Tacitus, I think, yeah, something like that, with the histories that we read ages ago. So he said, well, you know, got to stop that, because these women were pumping out lots and lots of children, right? Overpopulating. So apparently, pretty sure it's Tacitus, they started to get with those women, right? To outbreed them, you know? More Egyptians, you know, less Hebrews or Israelites, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, and there was the fear that they might team up with the enemies and take over the country, right? Rule the kingdom. So there's that fear there as well. So yeah, it looks like from that there was no Egyptians in Joseph's period. Okay? Because these Hyksos had come and invaded it and ruled. Yeah? It wasn't until after he died, sometime after he died, that it's like these Egyptians somehow got it back, right, and ruled. But they didn't recognise who this guy Joseph was, according to the Bible. That king did not know anything about Joseph, and then he made, because there's so many Israelites there, too many, overpopulating, all that sort of stuff, too many babies being born, whatever. He oppressed them, right? Tried to decrease their numbers by inbreeding or outbreeding the Israelites, etc., etc. Yeah, it's kind of a thing we're thinking about and pondering. That's what it seems to be. We can't avoid that. That's what it's saying in this particular book. Okay. It's very interesting. So we'd have to look at the scriptures, biblical scriptures, and see, okay, there's Joseph, and he's telling the king at the time. It doesn't actually, we don't think it actually names the king, or hints that it's an Egyptian. We're not really sure. What would that be? It'd be Genesis somewhere, prior to the end of Genesis. So we're going to have a quick look. Okay, just going to grab the NIV here and have a look. Well, actually, that's too small. I think it's too tiny. Can't see that. Even with big goggles on. Oh my gosh, this is even worse. The NLT. Okay, find one that's bigger. Where are we? There's a Bible that's bigger. Just going to wing it with that one. Genesis, right? Something like that. Because yeah, I'm pretty sure that Genesis ends when Joseph dies, right? Okay, Joseph dies. Oh, his father dies. Jacob dies. Joseph buries him and returns to Egypt with his brothers and all who accompanied him to his father. We're going to try to go earlier and see when he has his vision. Okay. Joseph made ruler of Egypt. Okay. So where's that one? Therefore Pharaoh, or the king, should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land. Okay, this is after Joseph tells him about this dream that he had. And 7 years of great prosperity, and then years of famine, etc. This will happen just as I described it, for God has revealed to Pharaoh, or the king, in advance what he is about to do. The next 7 years will be a period of great prosperity throughout the land of Egypt, but afterward there will be 7 years of famine, so great that all the prosperity will be forgotten in Egypt. Famine will destroy the land. This famine will be so severe that even the memory of the good years will be erased. As for having two similar dreams, it means that these events have been decreed by God, and he will soon make them happen. So Dr. Henry Clark? Yeah, Dr. Henry Clark and Ben Yohakan. Dr. Ben might be incorrect there with their claims, or the Bible's incorrect. One of those two. About, maybe this is a later date. Yeah, that's probably why. So I take that back. There was a famine, and people came knocking on their door. These Hyksos. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We try to match the two. Anyway, it says that once he told him this dream, this Pharaoh, or this king, told these people, should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. So Joseph ruled, right? Then the king should appoint supervisors over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead and bring it to Pharaoh's storehouses, the king's storehouses. Store it away and guard it so there will be food in the cities. That way there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, this famine will destroy the land. Everyone will die, we will destroy all that sort of stuff. So Joseph made ruler of Egypt. Joseph's suggestions were well received by Pharaoh and his officials. Okay, so does it mention any name of that Pharaoh? It's got Potiphar, because Joseph pleased Potiphar, so it could be an Egyptian name. So they could verify in the Bible it's an Egyptian ruler, right? Okay, because this book is saying it's Hyksos ruled, were dominant over it, right? At that period of Joseph. Okay, so we're trying to figure out where in these scriptures that suddenly there's no Egyptians there in relation to this particular book. It was this. Then Pharaoh gave Joseph a new Egyptian name, Zarpinath-Paneah. It's got a footnote indicated there. Can't really see it, it's so freaking small. Zarpinath-Paneah probably means God speaks and lives. It's a footnote at the bottom. So he also gave him a wife whose name was Asenath. She was the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. We're looking for that footnote, which is Genesis 42:45. Hebrew Israel's, that's not it. Where's this? I can't see the name there. Nope, can't see it. He gave him a wife. Where's that again? She was the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. No, we can't see it there. Footnote. Nope. Can't see nothing there. So Joseph took charge of the entire land of Egypt. He was 30 years old when he began serving in the court of Pharaoh, or the king, the king of Egypt. And when Joseph left Pharaoh's presence, he inspected the entire land of Egypt. Okay, as he predicted, etc., etc. Joseph's brothers go to Egypt, etc. No, nothing here of who that king was. We'd have to do further research to figure that one out. Is there a king's name in here somewhere in this actual book? Nope, let's see nothing there. Maybe we have to look at the original ancient, very old Tab Asheret Brita and get back to you on that. Surely we would have a footnote or something like that there, explanation or something, because we're looking in the Holy Bible, the New Living Translation. We can't seem to find any footnotes or any indication who this king was. But yeah, when Joseph dies and the Exodus begins, at some point it says this king, next king, didn't know who Joseph was. He had no clue who he was. And then they oppressed the Israelites. Just says in the beginning of Exodus 1:6, in time Joseph and all his brothers died. So obviously Jacob would have died as well, would have died before him, right? They all died out, they all died. In time Joseph and all his brothers died, ending that entire generation. But the descendants, the Israelites, had many children and grandchildren. In fact, they multiplied so greatly that they became extremely powerful and filled the land. Eventually, a new king came to power in Egypt. It doesn't say there Pharaoh. It just says a new king who knew nothing about Joseph or what he had done. He said to his people, "Look, the people of Israel now outnumber us and are stronger than we are in number, right? They must make a plan to keep them from growing even more, and that plan was to outbreed them, get hold of their woman and basically outbreed them, produce lots and lots of Egyptian children, right? Or something else. As soon as their babies are born, get rid of them. The second solution, right? Okay, then further down it says, then Pharaoh, or the king of Egypt, gave this order to the Hebrew midwives. Further up it just said, a new king. Okay. Yeah, we have to check out Exodus, the beginning of Exodus, and see if there's any footnotes from the original ancient Tab Ashrit translated into the nearest English equivalent by the native-born Aramaic-speaking translator Victor Nimrod Alexander. Okay, we're going to leave it there because we've probably been on this for like a couple of hours because it's really, really interesting to us. Hopefully it was to you. If it was, and you really liked it, then give us a like, subscribe to our channel, add your comments underneath, and you go share this video with all your family, friends and others.